Hello, everybody. This is J Movie Talk. This is a throwback episode to an earlier episode that I did a while back, a couple of years ago, actually, for the movie Tenet, Christopher Nolan's Tenet. I decided to re-release this episode because of the fact that Nolan, he has the Odyssey that just came out here a few weeks ago. So I decided to re distribute this episode and, let you guys listen to it and see what you might think about Tenet because I know Tenet might be Nolan's most divisive movie, if you will, and everything. I enjoyed Tenet a lot. Of course, getting into the recap and everything here shortly, but um I enjoy Tenet a lot, and it's one of the movies that I've watched a number of times and everything, and I enjoyed it just as much every time that I watch it. I think I even say that in the episode a few times, but yeah, this is a throwback episode, so with no further ado, switch it over to me in the previous episode where I reviewed Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
This movie, Tenet, which was directed by Christopher Nolan, and for anyone who has watched Christopher Nolan movies, and everything, know that he makes very, I want to say, thought provoking, complex stories with his movies. Even with the Batman movies, his Batman trilogy, those are some thought provoking, character driven movies as well. But the majority of his movies are movies that take you on a interesting journey. And this movie definitely takes you on an interesting journey. So the movie stars John David Washington, simply known as the protagonist, Robert Pattinson as Neil, Elizabeth Debicki as Kat. We have a few surprise appearances. One, you got Martin Donovan plays a character named Faye. Sir Michael Caine as Crosby, Sir Michael Crosby, that is. Also, we have Kenneth Branagh as Santor, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Ives, and Fiona Dorff as Wheeler. But those are pretty much your primary main cast of characters for this movie. And like I said, it was directed by Christopher Nolan. It came out in 2020. And a little history about the movie was the fact that Christopher Nolan, he wanted this movie to be shown in the movie theater, and everything. And during, of course, 2020, especially during the time when he wanted to release it in 2020, everything was shut down and everything. And people couldn't understand why he wanted this movie shown so bad in the movie theater. And I ended up buying the movie and everything, and I got a chance to sit down and actually watch it. And I can kind of see why he wanted it to be released in the movie theater, just because of how it is. The synopsis for the movie: armed only with one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. That's pretty much the synopsis of the movie, but of course it goes a lot deeper than that. So I'm going to do my best to try to talk about this movie. Some stuff I will try to be as less spoilery as possible, and if I feel like I'm going to go into like spoiler territory, I'll say, okay, this is a spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie, I'll probably say, turn it off, watch the movie, come back and listen to this episode, and so then you won't feel like, okay, I'm giving certain things away, because this movie definitely does have a lot of stuff in it that you don't know anything about just from watching the previews from it. You don't get why certain things happen or whatnot, and everything. So before I get into talking about the movie, the fact that John David Washington's character is he's just simply known as the protagonist, and he even says it in the movie about he's the protagonist. I thought that was very interesting. And another interesting thing that really stands out, or I should say stood out to me, and this even goes back to when he first, was showing up in this movie and we start seeing the previews for it, is that he is literally the only black person in this movie. And I don't know if that was done on purpose, which coming from Christopher Nolan, I'm pretty sure it was done on purpose. And what is the significance behind that? I really don't know. But the fact that he's literally the only black person in the movie, I think that says a lot about what they were trying to convey in regards to his character. I don't know how many people actually picked up on that or whatnot, but if you go back and watch the movie, because I watched it twice now. He's the only black person in the freaking movie, or whatnot, which is kind of interesting, and he sticks out and everything. And I think that's maybe that was one of the reasons for that, and everything. But I thought it was interesting that they didn't give him a name. He just simply known as the protagonist, and everything. So the movie kicks off with this kind of I almost want to say like a James Bond-ish type of opening where we get this siege on a opera house, and these agents, one of them being the protagonist, John David Washington, and everything, and they go in and basically they're trying to pull out one of their operatives or whatnot, and all the while this whole siege is going on with these like goons. They go in, they knock out the people that's there at the opera. They hold up the people that's actually performing and everything. And while this is going on, John David and his crew, they kind of disguise themselves as cops and everything, and they go in as well, and they go and get their man. And while they're in there, John David, he goes to the guy who's the operative that's inside to let them know, like, hey, you've been compromised, we got to get you out of here. And on their way out is where we get our first glimpse of something isn't completely right, where of course there's a whole shootout going on, and you realize that the cops that are there, some of them are kind of dirty as well, and it seems like they're working with the guys who's actually doing the siege, because one of the cops is actually he's putting down like a time bomb and everything to blow up the place. And then that's when the guy realizes that John David isn't who he say he is, because his patch on his sleeve isn't actually sewn on. It's just kind of stuck on there and it's kind of flapping about. So right as he is about to be killed and everything, you kind of see this weird thing of where there was already a bullet shot into the floor or whatnot, but it comes out in reverse through the guy that's behind John David, and he falls down dead. And you see this guy, he runs off, and it's like, who the hell, not only like who the hell is that, but what the hell did we just see? And he tries to figure this out, and everything. So after they manage to get the operative out of there or whatnot, they realize that, you know, at least he realizes that things isn't right. So he tries to basically find out what exactly going on. So we kind of go on this journey with the protagonist of finding out what exactly is Tenet, and I don't know if he's his boss or anything, but Martin Donovan's character, he basically lets him know, like, yeah, he just given one word called Tenet, and it'll help you open the right doors and even some of the wrong ones. And so that's all I can give you. You have to go on this journey to find out exactly what Tenet is. So, which he does, and he goes to see this doctor, this woman or whatnot, and she basically shows him how everything works, as far as like a bullet being inverted and things of that nature. And they're just trying to figure out, okay, where did this technology come from? And she's saying that it actually came from the future, and everything. So it's kind of an interesting thing of where for the first half of the movie, at least, you're trying to just figure out things. You're just kind of going with what's going on, really. You're just watching it as it plays out. And it plays out pretty much like a spy thriller, but with the whole twist of this kind of weird thing about stuff being inverted, especially with bullets. It's not so much that he's firing the bullets or anything, is that he's catching it, really. He's not firing, he's actually catching it. Everything is going in reverse. And everything, but you can kind of manipulate how how things work in this whole inverted world, which is something that we will see later on in the movie as it kind of progresses. So one of the things that, for me at least, that stands out is the cameo appearance, because that's basically what it is. It's a glorified cameo by Michael Caine, where the protagonist goes to see him, and like I say, his name is Sir Michael Crosby, and the protagonist goes to see him, and Crosby tells him about a week ago about an explosion that happened off somewhere at the same time that the Opera House siege was going on and everything. So that kind of piques his interest, like, okay, what was this about? And he's also told about Saunter, played by Kenneth Branagh's character. So this kind of piques his interest, and he kind of finds out more about him as well. So speaking of Saunter, and when he's introduced, because the way the protagonist has to get even close to Saunter is through his wife of Cat, played by Elizabeth Debicki, who is a art dealer, and they have this weird freaking relationship. He basically has a hold on her because she sold him a fake piece of art, which he knows was fake, but to basically have control over her because of the fact of it being a fake and it will ruin her reputation, she basically has to do everything that he says, and everything in regards to their child and just how they lead their life. And he's really a bully, and he just has this hold over her, but just the way they are is just like, this is a toxic relationship, but she can't get her way out of it because of the fact that they have this son together. And if she probably did try to leave, he wouldn't kill her necessarily, but her reputation in her field would be ruined. So the protagonist, he basically comes about, and it's almost like he's trying to seduce her in a way, and give the impression that there's something going on between them for Saunter to like really take eye to it, because he sends his goons to beat up the protagonist. And the scene in the restaurant is kind of funny, where, you know, they're there talking and everything, and then the goons, they show up and they take Cat off and everything, but he gets up and goes into the kitchen, and he realizes like it's a bunch of guys there, and he's like, you know, he says something like a smart remark or whatnot in regards to, I thought I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago, and then they started beating on him, but then he beats the hell out of them, and it shows like, hey, he's not just some pushover. So he uses the relationship that he's kind of building up with her to get close to Saunter. But I have this theory, so spoiler alert, this is with my first spoilers, and everything. So if you haven't seen the movie, skip over this part, or whatnot. So I have this theory in regards to the relationship between the protagonist and Cat. And that theory is that it was ingrained in the protagonist's mind to get close to Cat from the future, and everything. So it's almost like a subconscious thing. He had no choice but to get close to her because of things from the future being sent back to the past. Because I'm pretty sure he could have found a different way to get close to Saunter, but he uses the wife, and the fact that he insinuates that there's something going on between them, even though there isn't anything going on between them. And you can kind of tell, like, he looks at her as like a protector in a way, even without really knowing her. And it's kind of like, why? But I do have this theory that it was something that was put into his mind, and it was sent back from the future to the past, regards to his character. Because I failed to mention, after the whole Opera House siege, him and another operative are basically tested on the railroad tracks, in regards to, you know, about dying and everything. And he takes a cyanide pill, which you find out is fake and everything. It's not really, it kind of sort of is fake or whatnot. We never really get confirmation if it's truly fake, but he doesn't die, but he was out, and we don't know how long he was actually out. So I feel like there was something done to him while he was asleep, regards to why he goes on this whole journey about Tenet in the first place. All right, so continuing on talking about this. So that's like I said, that was just a little spoiler. So if you haven't seen it, hopefully you skipped over that part that I just said as far as the theory. So going back to talking about Kenneth Branagh as Sansa, this man is a freaking madman in this movie. It's kind of funny too because of the fact that Elizabeth Debicki, she's a legit 6'2", and Kenneth Branagh, I mean, he's like 5 foot. I want to say probably like 5'8" or something like that. And John David is short too, so she's actually one of the tallest people in this movie, and she towers over these men. But they try to position it in ways to where it looks like she's not that tall, but you know that she's tall. Plus, she wears heels in these freaking movies, so they're probably putting her like maybe at 6'3", 6'4" in a lot of these scenes or whatnot. And the fact that Sansa basically has like a little man complex, and it's just a lot of the stuff that he does in this movie. It's like, this dude really is crazy, because the whole thing is that he finds out that he has inoperable cancer and everything, and basically he feels like if he can't live, then nobody else in the world should be able to live as well. And so basically, if he dies, that's when he's going to set off this explosion that's going to destroy the world or whatnot. So that's basically what they're fighting against. Like, we got to keep him alive in order to save the world, or keep him alive long enough to stop this bomb from going off in order to save the world. Even though, keep in mind, this bomb went off a week ago from where we are now in the story. So the protagonist, he enlists the help of a Tenet agent named Neil, played by Robert Pattinson. And it's funny kind of seeing like Robert Pattinson in this type of role, because he really has broken away from playing he really got away from the whole Twilight thing, and he started doing a lot of movies that show like, hey, this dude really can act. He was a lot more than just a lot what was going on with the Twilight. Because if you look at like a Taylor Lautner and a couple of the other guys that was in the Twilight movies, their careers ain't really went nowhere. But Pattinson, his career has really blossomed and everything, and he showed like, hey, he really is a legit talent. And I mean, I am looking forward to him playing the Batman, which will come out next year, which was supposed to come out this year, but it got pushed back further. But he found out that he got cast as Batman when he was filming this movie. So, but the thing is, in regards to Neil, they began to find out that Sansa has a link to the future, and is trying to figure out like, how exactly does he have this link to the future? And that is the reason why, that's how he made his money, and that's how he kind of knows a lot what's going on before anybody knows what's going on. And they find out that he's planning about, ending the world when he dies, and everything. So the protagonist and Neil, they plan to steal a piece of this thing called the algorithm, which is this device that Sansa has. Where they're going to steal it for him to complete the algorithm, but that's the whole plan. But at the same time, they're planning to keep it for themselves so that he can't get it and everything. Because if he completes the algorithm, then of course he will be able to destroy the world the way he wanted to. But while all this is going on, instead of giving it to Sansa or whatnot, Sansa kind of already knows like this is what they're planning on doing. So he kidnaps Kat to ensure that they give him the piece of the algorithm that they plan on stealing. So while this is all going on, we get this whole elaborate chase on the highway, and this is another one of those instances where we see like some kind of off the wall thing where they're in a car chase, but at the same time we see where Sansa is going in reverse and everything, but he has Kat already and everything. So he basically forces the protagonist to give him the piece of the algorithm that they stole from this truck and everything. And there's this mysterious car that's on the highway that's kind of trying to help, but you never know who exactly is driving this car, because the car is also going in reverse. So it's like, okay, well, who the hell is that, and what exactly is going on here? Because there's quite a few moments in this movie where you're kind of like, okay, what exactly am I watching? But you just kind of have to kind of just go along with it as it's going on, because if you try to think about it too much or whatnot, it will kind of cause you to probably overthink a lot of stuff, and you'll miss a lot of things. I mean, you're gonna miss things anyway as you're watching it, whatnot, but it'll probably cause you to miss even more stuff as you're watching it if you try to overthink certain things. So after the whole thing that happens on the highway and everything, and the protagonist, he ends up getting kidnapped by Saunter and his men, and he's taken to this warehouse, and is one of Saunter's warehouses, and that's where we get this whole thing of the red room and the blue room. And he's put into one side, and that's where we see where Kat has been taken by Saunter. She's put on the other side, because one way that this whole thing works is that one side is always moving forward in time, the other side is always moving backwards in time, and there always has to be a barrier between each side in order for this to completely work. So the protagonist is sat down, and he's forced to see Kat, this has already happened, but because it's going in reverse, so he's seeing it as that Saunter has basically kidnapped her and held her at gunpoint. He's already shot her and everything, and basically he's seeing it as it's going forward in time, and he's forced to tell Saunter where exactly he put the device and everything, because it wasn't inside the car. So it's like I already told you where it is. So that he counts down, and he ends up shooting Kat with an inverted bullet, which is deadly to her because the bullet came back through her. It didn't go into her. It came back through her. So she's been shot with an inverted bullet. So now she's going to be suffering from like lead poison and stuff like that or whatnot. And I feel like this is the point of the movie where it really hits a change. And everything, because from this point on, we're on for this wild ride of everything. Even though the movie itself, when it's up to this point, it's kind of straightforward. You're going through the motions and everything. You're kind of learning about what exactly the mission is. But then from this point on, I feel like there's a shift, because what happens is that right before they're about to kill the protagonist, that's when Neil, along with some soldiers led by Ives, they show up, and they basically run off Saunter and go through this turnstile, which basically takes him back through time. And they're trying to figure out, okay, where exactly did he go? It's like, we could be anywhere by now and everything. So the plan is to basically save Kat. And he, like I say, the whole thing, my theory about the protagonist has this ingrained thing that he must save Kat. He just must save her. It's like, well, can we save her and everything? So, well, we can try it and see. It's like, well, just look and see if we actually succeed. And it's funny because when he turns around and looks over to the other side, he sees them coming through the turnstile with her, which clearly indicates like, yeah, they actually succeed when they go through on their side. So it's kind of funny, like you going and you kind of looking into the future in certain points of this movie. So they go back in time, and that's when they kind of start going back through the events of what we've already seen, and then you're starting to see it from a different perspective. A lot of the stuff and everything. So when I was watching the movie for the second time, that's when I started to notice like little things that show up from when we're watching it going forward that you only notice when they start going back in time. So like the first thing that we notice is that the protagonist is the mysterious man that's driving the BMW car that's in between the protagonist and Neil and Saunter when he have Kat kidnapped on the highway. He's driving that car. And then the other thing too is that there's this fight between the protagonist and this guy that's dressed up like a SWAT member or whatnot, at the airport. And you try to figure out who the hell was that and everything. Who was he fighting and whatnot? But come to find out, it was him. he was fighting himself, but you only find that out as they're going back through time, and everything. One of the other things about this movie is the fact that Neil knows a lot more than what he lets on throughout the whole movie. He knows more about everything that's going on. And even the protagonist is trying to figure out, like, how do you know this stuff? And Neil, with the way he is, he just kind of plays it off a lot of times. But certain things that he says, and he acts as if he knows the protagonist because he knows what he drinks. He knows that he doesn't drink during missions. It's just stuff that he knows. And it's like, how do you know this? And I kind of like the relationship that him and Robert Pattinson have in this movie because they have really good chemistry with the way they play off of each other. So another thing that comes up is that as they're going back through time, they basically have to keep Kat locked away, away from the elements of the outside world. Because basically when you're inside, you're able to move like forward and stuff like this. But when you go outside, when you're inverted, you're susceptible to, everything going in reverse. So the fact that she's been shot and everything. So Neil, he basically stays by her side the whole time that she's been shot, and they have to go back through the airport. And it's funny because it's almost like, I almost want to say it's similar to like Back to the Future Part 2, where when Doc and Marty have to go back to 1955, where when they go back to 1955, because there's already a version of Marty there, and also there's already a version of Doc in 1955, and they have to avoid each themselves in regard. It's the same thing with this, that when they go back to certain places like the airport or whatnot, they have to avoid themselves in a lot of ways. And we find out back at the airport because there was actually two people who went through the turnstile. One was inverted and one was moving forward in time. And the one that was moving forward in time is the one that Robert Pattinson, Neil, he goes after. And you notice that the guy got away, and you didn't see him when it was going forward. But when we're going backwards, we realize that Neil knows that it was actually the protagonist who actually was the one who came out on his side moving forward in time and everything. But he doesn't tell the protagonist that, it was him and everything. He just let it plays out, or whatnot. So after they pretty much get her back to health and everything, and they come up with a plan like, okay, we got to get Saunter. He already has the whole, algorithm. He's gonna, destroy the world. It's like, but where exactly is he doing all of this? And that's when Kat, who's been nursed back to health, she tells him like, yeah, well, we were on the yacht and everything at our most happiest moment and everything. We shared this great moment and everything. So it's like, well, that'll be the place where he would be when the bomb is going off and everything. So she decides that she's going to go and get him, keep him at bay long enough in order for them to, go to the whole place of where the bomb goes off or whatnot. So now you got her as far as joining with the group as well. So the protagonist and Neil, they join up with Ives, and the Tenet soldiers. And that's when we get explained exactly what's going down here. So you got two sets of team, one red, one blue. One is inverted, one is moving forward in time. And they have exactly 10 minutes in a coordinated effort to, defuse this, to stop the bomb from going off and saving the world or whatnot. Because the blue team is actually the inverted team and everything. So they will be going, so the red team will be going in based off of what the blue team had already experienced, and everything. So they'll be able to maneuver through based off of what the blue team has already gone through. And I know a lot of people watching it, and even watching it the first time, you're just like, what the hell is going on here? Because you don't really know what's going on. Because it's crazy to see this. So the protagonist, he's so hell-bent on being the one who actually, is the one who gets his hands on the algorithm and actually save the world. And Ives even tells him like, yeah, we are the ones that actually are the ones who actually do this. You and I, just you and I, Ives and the protagonist are the ones who actually get down down there to say, and get their hands on the algorithm and stop everything from happening. So that's when the protagonist, he gets all hyped and everything. Like, okay, I'm actually going to be doing this and everything. So doing this whole final battle is where we realize that there's actually two Neils running around. And you don't really think about it until you notice, like, okay, Neil, initially he's not with the red team. Initially, we don't see him, but he actually is. Well, actually, there's 3 versions of Neil, really, that's running around, which I found out, but there's only 2 that they kind of focus on, and everything. So as they're going through or whatnot, and when Ives and the protagonist, they get down into where the algorithm is and where the bomb is supposed to be detonated, is where they get to this locked door, and they notice that there's a soldier who's been shot and killed. And it's like, well, who the hell is that? And everything. And they're trying to figure things out. They're trying to figure out how to unlock this door or whatnot and everything. But all at the same time, Neil is trying to get to them to, to get their attention to stop them from even going down there, because he knows that they get trapped down there, which they do. Once they go through, they get trapped down in the cave. So there's really no way for them to get out. And so Neil, he decides that he's going to basically save them some type of way, and everything like that. So that's how you know that there's 2 Neils running around, because one is up above running around, but then there's the other one that goes down below and to save Neil, and to not save Neil, but to save Ives and the protagonist. Now, while all that is going on, Kat, she, along with another operative or whatnot, they go to where Sansa's boat is, because she know exactly what happens here, where her and her son Max have gone off to, they've gone away and everything, and Sansa, he's gone as well. So she gets aboard the ship or whatnot, but to her surprise, Sansa, he comes back, and he's thinking it is past Kat, where it actually is future Kat. So she has this whole new demeanor about her, and he can't really figure it out, like what exactly that is about her, but he doesn't say anything. But we realize that this version of Sansa, he knows what's going on back at the site and everything. So him and Kat, they kind of have this moment and everything. You're thinking like, oh, it's a lovely moment between the two of them, and it kind of sort of is, because this is like one of the few times he doesn't know what's going to happen to him here, because in his mind he succeeded with his plan already. So he doesn't know that this happens to him, what's about to happen. So in regards to Kat, he never suspects her of being anything other than, who she actually is, and everything. So he actually gets on the phone and talks to the protagonist and lets him know, like, you thought that you was going to be able to stop me, say, but it was inevitable to happen and everything like this or whatnot. And then all the while this is going on, that's when Kat, she's like in the background, and she's basically setting up to do, to basically kill him in a sense or whatnot. So he gets off the phone with the protagonist, who is basically panicking at this point, because Sansa's main goon, who we kind of seen throughout the movie, he shows up, and he's down there. He's the one who actually sets off the bomb to go off anyway. So what's funny is that she does so Kat basically, after he gets off the phone, she's talking to him, and then that's when she lets her true intentions be known, and he can't figure out what exactly is happening until it's too late, and then that's when she kills him and everything. And what's funny about this is that earlier in the movie, she says that, she noticed she always hated him, and she always hated this mysterious woman who she saw jumping from the yacht and everything. She never said anything to him about it, but she always hated him because she felt like he was cheating on her with someone, not realizing that she was actually the woman jumping from the yacht herself after she had killed him. And she kills Santer, tosses his body overboard, and she jumps in, and then her and the other guy, they get away on the boat and they're dragging Santer's body away and everything like that. Speaking of Elizabeth Debicki in this movie, now I've seen her in quite a few things up to this point, and she's always, I mean, she has a unique look. Like I say, she's a very tall woman. She's a beautiful woman and everything, but I feel like this is this role actually for me is like her breakout role, because she does a lot of heavy lifting as far as like a character standpoint in certain scenes. And this scene, the scene between her and Kenneth Branagh, I feel like is like a star making moment. And I know she's going to be playing Princess Diana in The Crown soon, and everything, but she's really a very good actress, and it'd be interesting to see if she returns for the MCU, because she was in the Guardians of the Galaxy sequel, and the whole thing, you know, with them, I mean, they have to revisit that, because with that stinger at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where she was watching Adam Warlock basically, you know, whatever they were doing, which she created him basically, and everything. So hopefully they bring her back and show Adam Warlock coming about. Hopefully that wasn't just in vain and just for nothing, but knowing how the MCU is, they're not going to leave that, you know, just out there twisting in the wind basically. So, but it would be cool to see her come back, because she's still alive out there, and everything like that. So, like I say, she's a part of the MCU. She's going to be playing Princess Diana, and everything. So she's definitely an actress to like watch, because she does have a presence about her, and everything. And I actually enjoy her performance in this movie. So going back to what happens back at the whole site and everything, where Ives and Neo trying to get, you know, to stop the bomb from going off. And you notice that as the soldier is about to kill the protagonist, that's when the body on the floor begins to move in reverse. And right as he's about to shoot the protagonist, the guy body that comes up, he's right there, and he ends up getting shot with an inverted bullet. But at the same time, he unlocks the door and allows for the protagonist to get through and stop the guy from setting off the bomb. And all the while this is going on, Ives and the protagonist, they end up getting a hold of the algorithm, and that's when you notice that Neil is still up above trying to save them, and let down a rope, and right before the explosion happened, they pull him up and they save the world. The explosion still goes off, but they save the world, type of thing. So here is where probably the most important scene of the movie comes about, because it's like the three guys at sundown almost, or I should say at sunrise in a way. They have a moment, and at first it seemed like Ives is about to double cross them, but then he like, nah, and just he breaks the thing down. He gives Neil a piece, and he gives the protagonist a piece, and it's like, you know, if I ever see you guys again, I just might kill you, you know, type of thing. And then he walks off, and he's taking his piece with him. And Neil, which I thought was kind of interesting, he gives his piece to the protagonist, and as he's about to go away with Ives too, that's when the protagonist starts asking him questions, and he notices that the red tag that's on his sack is the same red tag from the guy who was down in the cave that gets shot and killed. So he realizes like that was Neil. So Neil saved him not only once, saved him twice. In the same instance, he saved him twice. And so that's when he starts asking him, it's like who recruited you? It's like, haven't you figured it out by now? It's like, you did. And everything like that. And then that's when Neil begins to tell him like he recruited him 27 years in the past. It's like they've had a whole friendship. From Neil's point of view, they've had a whole friendship. They've gone on some adventures together, and they've probably saved the world multiple times together. But for the protagonist at this point in time, it's only the beginning, where Neil knows that this is the end of his story. And you can see like the emotion on John David's face in that scene, because he knows like this is his friend. As he's leaving, he's going to die. This is where he goes to die, and everything. And it's a great scene, and it's funny too. Like Neil's last line is like, "I see you in the beginning, friend," because whatever's happened. And he's like, "But I see you at the beginning, friend," like that. And so he goes off with Ives, and that's the last time we see them or whatnot. So there was this whole running thing in regards to the protagonist, in regards to Kat, because it's even said earlier by Neil's like, it's like, you're not going to go off to London and protect, and watch over her even from afar. It's like, no, she's way too dangerous and everything, because now she's this hardened woman to some degree, which kind of comes back later. But just talk about Robert Pattinson for a minute. I mean, this movie to me is what really made me be like, yeah, I think he can actually pull off playing Bruce Wayne Batman, because he's very, I want to say he's very like cool, calm, collected, even though from what I've seen of the trailer for the Batman, is going to be a different take on how Bruce Wayne is, I feel like. But it proves like, hey, yeah, if I had any reservation about him playing Bruce Wayne / Batman, this movie kind of takes that out. And also too, I can see him doing even more like spy type thrillers, movies similar to how he plays it in this movie or whatnot, and everything. So after the whole thing that happens at the bomb site, the protagonist, he goes to basically tie up some loose ends, because we see where Kat is walking on the sidewalk, and she noticed that there's like a car off in the distance watching her, and we see where is Pryor and one of her hitmen, because Pryor, she was actually supposed to be killed like earlier in the movie by the protagonist and Neil, because we find out that she was actually the arms dealer who was selling stuff to Saunter or whatnot. But then you realize like she was working for Tenet also, and she was just basically to ensure that Saunter got everything that he needed to make sure that he thought that that his plan was going to succeed, even though it never succeeded, because they always stopped it from succeeding. But she was always just there as an agent to ensure that he thinks that his plan is going to actually be a success. But she's there to kill Kat, and it's funny because the way that Saunter had a link to the future and vice versa through the past was through this phone that he was speaking, and it would go to his future self or whatnot. So but the phone is given to Kat, and everything, and the protagonist told her to, if she ever feels like she's in trouble, call that phone, and it'll be all right. So she does. She calls the phone and everything, and she gives the time and everything like that. So right as the hitman for Pryor is about to, go after Kat and everything, the back seat door opens, and the protagonist, he comes in, he kills the hitman, and that's when so this is another theory that I have. I feel like the protagonist that we see in this moment is from the future. Well, I mean, he has to be from the future, because the way he's talking, he has a different type of confidence of what we saw of him going forward through the primary part of the movie anyway. So him and Pryor, they have this whole conversation, and it even comes about, he's like, yeah, you thought that you was working for, I thought I was working for you. He said, but in actuality, we both were working for me. He said, because I am the protagonist. And basically, you kind of get the feeling like he's actually the one who has set this whole thing up. And so it comes back to that whole built-in notion that why certain things was built into his mind about protecting Kat when he didn't even know her at that time, because it was already instilled in him to do so because of his future self. So it's almost like the future is dictating the past in a way, where in actuality the future is supposed to dictate the past is supposed to dictate the future, but in the Tenet world, the future actually dictates the past in a lot of ways. Because it's even talked about how certain things that happen in the future is placed back for the past, and then it's like, how is that even possible? But in certain instances, that does happen in this movie or whatnot. So he basically does go off and watch over Cat from a distance, because it kind of lingers on him looking at her and her son Max as they walk away. And I know there's always been there's a big theory in regards to who exactly Neil is supposed to be, and everything. And one of the theories is that Neil is supposed to be Max, and that's probably when the protagonist first introduces himself to Max, and that's how he basically trained him and probably brought him up and everything like that. I won't go too much into talking about that, but that's kind of a theory, and there's actually some levity to that theory, especially with the fact that Max does look similar-ish to Neil, especially from the blonde hair and everything like that, and why Neil never left Cat's side during the whole inversion when she's been shot with an inverted bullet and everything. So it's like little nuggets like that in regards to the movie. But that's pretty much it. I know I've kind of talked about the movie here for almost an hour or whatnot, almost 50 minutes, I should say. But I enjoy this movie. It is worth watching twice. I definitely say you should not. If you watch this movie, you definitely should watch it at least 2 times, which I did, and everything. Because there's certain things that you miss when you watch it the first time that you notice when you watch the second time, and then the way it makes you think about certain things that you're watching. Like, okay, why exactly is this happening? Who exactly is this person? How is this person be able to be in 3 different places at the same time or whatnot? So I definitely recommend the movie. The movie is stunning from the fact that Christopher Nolan basically made an espionage movie with a Nolan twist, I should say. And everything. John David gives a damn good performance. Robert Pattinson, pretty much all the leads give great performances in the movie. There's no one person from an acting standpoint that is lagging in this movie. So if I had to give a movie a rating, I give it a 5 out of 5. I really do. And everything. As far as a favorite character, I would probably go with as from a character standpoint, it's kind of a tough one. I don't think I have a favorite character like that. Like I said, because I enjoy all the performances in this movie, and everything. But that's pretty much it.
All right, so that is Tenet episode. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed listening to that episode. If that was your first time hearing the episode, I greatly appreciate it and everything like that. Of course, you can comment down below, especially if you're listening on YouTube. Comment your thoughts about the movie, some theories that I had in the episode, and everything like that. Thank you again for listening. I will be back. I might throw another throwback episode in, or I might have a new episode. I'm not too sure just yet. But again, thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.